Yo, what's going on? So as you can see today, we're right now not in the studio. I'm actually in the record room. This is where I keep all my samples and I look for samples. And that's because before we get into making today's beat, I wanted to talk about a change that I've made in my workflow in terms of making beats and finding samples, because I think it could incorporate well into your production as well. So a situation that I kept kind of finding myself in recently that was getting kind of frustrating is anytime I really felt like making a beat and I was feeling creatively like I was in a good place to go make something, I would take a stack of records up to the MPC, have the turntable beside me, and then I would start searching for samples, something to flip up. But then sometimes I would find after 10-15 minutes of looking for samples and not finding something I was really into, it would be frustrating because some of that creative energy that I had going into it was suddenly gone. I no longer had that spark of inspiration that really led me to go up and sit by the MPC because I was sitting by the turntable putting the needle down. So one thing that I've found that I've implemented into my workflow that's made beat making way more productive for me personally is that I really try to separate some of the tactics that go into making beats. So when it comes to sampling specifically, what I have started doing is I'll have times where when I feel like listening to music and I feel like searching for samples, I'll be down here putting the needle on the record player I have down here and just looking for samples. And when I find something, I'll put a note on a sticky, put it on the record, or I'll just make a little note in my notepad. Something that when I do feel like making a beat, I can go back to and I'll have all of these things that I can then pull from. That way when I'm feeling inspired to go and make a beat, I'll just go up to the MPC and I already have these things that I can go to. And what this does is it kind of allows you to really focus on that piece of creativity that you're working on and kind of block out the things that will keep you from getting to that creative place. And as I said, I have really been incorporating this into my production. So last night I was feeling like just going through some of the records, listening to records, see if I could find samples. So I went through a bunch of different records, wrote down different notes, and then now tonight that I've done that and I feel inspired to sort of make a beat, we can go up to the studio and I'll already have those lists of things that I can just put the needle down, and I know that there's at least going to be something decent on there. Even if it sounds a little bit different than it did last night when I listened to it, it at least gives me a bit more direction into when I want to make something and I want to be creative. I can go right into it rather than having to start sifting through things and then I start to lose that inspiration and creativity. So with that said, let's put this new workflow and theory into practice. I've got a bunch of samples lined up. We'll go up to the studio and see what we can put together. Okay, so now we're back in the studio, and as I mentioned, because I went through everything yesterday and was just literally looking for samples, I was able to find a ton of samples because that's kind of just like where my headspace was. And now we'll be able to just kind of go in, and when we start making beats, you can just instantly go in, there's gonna be something here, there's gonna be something here, etc. So one of the things I found yesterday was a sample from this self-titled Chic record. I'll put it on the MPC, chop it up, and then we'll see what we can do with it. The other thing I wanted to mention in terms of this workflow is it does work really well with sampling, but it can also be implemented into other aspects of your production. For example, when it comes to synth music, it's nice to kind of separate designing synth sounds with actually making music, because again, you're kind of putting your head into that focused space where one day you're really focusing on sound design and then the next day you're going into maybe make a song with the sounds that you made the night before. And it just allows you to, rather than flip-flopping into different aspects, you can really get down and focus on the thing that you really want to achieve and that you're really in the mood for. And the song that we're going to be flipping off this Chic record is called Falling in Love with You. And so I literally just put a sticky note on the back of the record and it said track 3, side 2 has a Rhodes intro. So I go in, put it down, sure enough, it has a really nice sounding Rhodes song as the intro, chopped it up on the MPC, and now I can get right into making beats. So let's see what we can do. So here's a little piece of what the sample sounds like. So I'm going to turn the semi down on that sample. I'll say let's go to -7, and then we'll get that really nice rich tone from that Rhodes. So I've come up with a nice pattern that we can lay down. I've got the BPM set to 83. Let's record the pattern, see how it sounds. I think this sample chop is going to sound really nice with the sort of lo-fi type of drums that I do sometimes. And in order to achieve that, I typically will unquantize some of the drums just to make sure it has sort of that human element, and I think it's going to give it a really nice sound. So I'll try to come up with a drum pattern, then we can lay that down. Let's do it. I really like how those drums turned out. Obviously, because we did the whole thing unquantized and I even played it in a little rough, it sounds really loose, and I think with the sort of simple sounding sample that we have, it matches really well. It gives it like that real classic lo-fi sound. So now to give it a bit more punch, let's add in some bass. I will use a sample for this bass line just because anytime I get into something that seems to be going the lo-fi direction, I like to try to keep it all sample based. So I'll find a bass sample and then we can lay down a simple bass line. Let's do it. And just to make sure that the bass line doesn't fight with the sample, I think the mids are kind of competing with the sample a little bit. I'm going to turn down the filter on that bass line just to make sure we take out some of those higher range frequencies, and then it will just mix with the sample and drums a little bit better. So I think that sequence is in a good spot. Let's come up with another sample chop that we can use as a second sequence, and then we'll have sort of two pieces of the beat that we can go back and forth from. Alright, I think the beat turned out pretty solid, but what I really wanted to talk about today was kind of separating your processes when it comes to making beats, and I think it will really just help you become a little bit more productive when it comes to making beats, because when you're feeling inspired, you can sit down and really get to work, and when you're feeling like looking for samples, you can really spend your time doing that and looking. And again, when it comes to synths, you can do the sound design and just really try to separate the things that goes into your music, because when you do, you can really focus on that specific thing and it will allow you to do it to the best of your abilities. So I hope you like the way the beat turned out. If you like the video, make sure you give it a thumbs up and let me know in the comments what you want to see in a future video. Love you guys so much, appreciate you, and thank you for hanging out, making music with me as always, and I'll see you guys soon.